Hi there, this is Wendy Hernandez, attorney and creator of Command the Courtroom, and I want to welcome you to this show. I'm really excited to have a special guest today, Ashley-Nicole Russell. And Ashley is also a family law attorney in North Carolina. But what I loved when I found Ashley is she has this awesome podcast. It's called the Divorce Healthy Podcast. And she's really trying to spread the message to people all over the United States that, and probably all over the world, that healthy divorce is possible. And as you can see right behind Ashley there, she's also the author of a book called The Cure for Divorce Culture, Repairing the Damage Within a Lost Class of People. So welcome to the show, Ashley-Nicole. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm so excited to help spread the message.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. So, you have a lot of knowledge, and it sounds like you've done a ton of research around the the history of divorce and how it started and how we got to where we are today, where it's really, there's this idea that divorce equals conflict, divorce equals ugly, divorce equals unhealthy, divorce equals toxic. So, can you talk to me a little bit about how we got to where we are today?
Yes. So, what you're describing is the culture of divorce. And so we're trying to change that culture. Just because it's the norm doesn't mean it's right. And so when I went to law school, I started to learn a lot of the things that I felt like really had an effect on my own childhood and created a broken life for me. I started to learn how to be a divorce attorney. Well, a lot of the tactics and things that I was being taught within law school, I kind of correlated the two between my childhood and my parents' divorce and what I was being taught. And I saw that there were a lot of things that I felt like created some of the issues within my childhood through the legal system. And so I started analyzing, and I wrote The Cure for Divorce Culture because I really wanted to publish what I had found as my synopsis of what had happened in our country, because I felt like if we could give everyone a perspective of what divorce actually has become and how it got there, we would understand that it wasn't necessarily personal. It was an industry and a business event, if you would.
I got it. So, and I know, well, first of all, I have the book, and thank you for sending this to me, Ashley-Nicole. I haven't been able to
Absolutely.
dig into it. I just got it this past week, but I encourage everybody to go out and get this book. How can they find the book before I
It's
forget?
on Amazon,
Okay.
or you can get a copy from the website A&R Law, but you can find it on Amazon, and there's a Kindle version as well.
Okay, so go get the book, and I don't want you to do a complete spoiler of the book, but I don't know if it's possible for you to just briefly
Yes.
summarize, I mean, you said that, it was an industry thing in terms of how we got to where we are today. Can you explain a little more what you
Correct.
mean?
And so even business right now is starting to understand this because they're losing so much money because of what's happening in divorce. So they're losing the productivity of their employees. They're losing time from the employees being at their jobs because they're missing so much work for court. They're also losing a lot of money in the production of legal documents, the subpoenas that go out. If you imagine a bank. So I had a bank that did a commercial for me because they're very, understanding of the brokenness of the system and what's happening to people. If you walk in and ask for 4 years of bank statements, the teller has to go off to do that. And so now how many people are left needing services because you had to go in and ask for 4 years of bank statements that like maybe 6 months are going to be looked at in reality, and so
Right.
not in every case, but I'm generalizing. And so I started to see, because I'm a business owner, I own multiple businesses, where this breakdown was happening all over the place. And so I started to analyze it, and it turns out that it really it's a historical event. In 1969, Reagan signed into effect no-fault divorce in California. That then spread like a tidal wave over the states because it created a backup of filings. This was off the back of the feminist movement, which was great. Women were no longer property. They did not have to get divorced just because their husband cheated or there was an affair. And so it kind of moved towards people saying, okay, I want a better life for myself, or this wasn't really the person I wanted to marry, or, I want to change my mind, which I think we're all entitled to change our mind here in America and in the world and as humans. And so it wasn't necessarily supposed to be what it is, but because the family system was created, we don't have actual federal legislature or state legislature that creates a subsection called family court that's supposed to be completely different from district court or superior court that handles this issue, right? It just
Right.
kind of integrated into the system that was already there, that's very archaic and that's not supposed to be there to help the family. We have a criminal system to punish, and then we have a civil system to make people whole again when they've been damaged monetarily. Where does the family fit into either of those scenarios? And so it created a system that kind of got backed up. Then attorneys had a lot of billable hours. There was a lot of money to be made. Now we have a $50 billion divorce industry. And so if we can kind of think of it from that perspective and we back up and we look at, for your people who are in the courtroom and you think, okay, how did I get here today? Well, you got here because of a culture, right? You got here because there's, been a transition of events that have happened that's kind of gotten us to this point, and you're in a system that has a V in the middle of it that makes two people adversarial, and that the more animosity there is between the two of you, the more money there is to be made. There's also issues with child support and state funding on how much money they make off of child support orders that are in each state, and there's a lot of research around this. And so because of that historical perspective is in the book, and then it goes into how that then transitioned to this broken class of people, and then how we can get out of it. So It's really a manual.
So I love that, and so that was kind of what was occurring to me, just on a more global level and then on an individual level. I'm wondering, is it possible to dig ourselves out if, globally, and then for the individual, for the person who's in the middle of a divorce and it is, it's ugly and it's hard and it's the scorched earth type of litigation, is it possible to get out and transition into something that's more healthy?
It is 100% possible. And so I preach this all the time. I'm like, it's not a unicorn to have a healthy divorce, and is it hard? Yes. Is divorce in itself hard? Yes. It's not, I'm not just going to make it lollipop land just because I'm titling it Divorce Healthy. It doesn't mean that it's easy. It does mean that it is healthy, meaning that on the other side of it, you're able to understand your piece of it, understand how you got there, understand where it is that you want to go, and being very purposeful about every decision that you make from that point forward to guard your space, your boundaries, keeping your environment healthy, but also giving yourself grace that you're not perfect. That is, in essence, how you achieve a healthy divorce. And of course, you want that same thing for your children, which is the big piece.
Totally. So that's a wonderful message, and I hope everybody took notes right there. I have a question, Ashley-Nicole, because a lot of my viewers are dealing with a situation where they have an ex-spouse or soon to be ex-spouse who, may not necessarily be very mentally healthy. And they often ask me, how can I make this more healthy if the other side is like nuts? What are your thoughts on that? How can somebody deal with that and move more towards a healthy divorce if the other side is just high conflict? They may have a personality disorder. They may be a narcissist. They may be a sociopath.
Yep. Well, none of that has anything to do with your reaction to it. So I totally understand that those situations are all incredibly difficult, but I want you to remember this. When you taught your child how to eat, you modeled exactly what it was like to open your mouth. That's what you did. You said, ah, or you motioned your mouth opening as you were moving the spoon to their mouth. You just did, I promise. And so because you did that, I want you to remember that in this moment, you're modeling how to handle conflict. You're not modeling how to eat. You're modeling how to handle conflict. Just one model is good enough. All they need is one. They just need to be able to see it from one side. And so it does not mean that the two of you have to be perfect. It means that you have to handle conflict appropriately. It has nothing to do with the other person on the other side. Yes, are they generating the conflict that you're now modeling for how to deal with? They are. You can say, maybe there's a silver lining because I'm teaching my child how to deal with conflict right now. I promise you, your child is going to go through conflict at some point in time in their life. It's either this that you can completely have your hands on and help coach and control them on how to manage conflict through it, or it could be something that would be totally outside of your hands. And so I think that, we don't want to call any of those things into the universe, but we all understand what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is, let's say that the other side is a narcissist and there's nothing you can do about that. every single narcissistic thing that they do, you have a reaction to. That means your child is going to be able to see, this person's difficult. They're doing difficult things. They're making difficult decisions. And then this parent is dealing with that difficulty in this way, rolling with the punches, ignoring that behavior. Not, if you infuriate that behavior or you even acknowledge it, you're giving it energy, versus if you're not acknowledging it, you're redirecting that energy into positive energy. They're seeing how you move between those two spaces. A lot of the advice on how to do that is in the book. It's also on the Divorce Healthy podcast. But these are things, there are books that you need to read. You need to think about yourself and how you manage conflict. How did your parents deal with conflict? How did you get a model of conflict? Because how you model it is affecting how you're reacting to it and what the other person's doing. And so as long as if your child, let's say that you do all of this and your child sees, for this example, we're just going to use mom. So mom was being attacked consistently by dad. Children can understand that. They're not idiots. They know what's going on. If you are reactivating to every time that you're being triggered, then they're learning that when you're triggered, you just activate. Versus if you take a deep breath and a pause, you restructure that into something positive, or you move forward from it, or you don't give it, you're not enabling that negative energy, or you're removing yourself from the situation. You are actively showing them how to do all of that. So figure it out first for yourself so that you can show them. The greatest thing that I can use as a metaphor is if you're in a plane, they tell you you have to put on your mask before you put your child's mask on. That is not because they're trying to sacrifice your child. They're saying you cannot function as a parent if you can't breathe. In order for you to have your natural instincts to be a parent, you have to have oxygen going to your brain. That's the same thing in this situation.
Totally. And so what are the effects, do you think, on the children if a parent isn't doing what you're suggesting? What could potentially happen with the kids?
So this is where we go dark in this conversation because it's not good. But the suicide rate is increased by 30% for children who are exposed to litigated divorce and high conflict divorce. That means that your child is 30% more likely to take their life if you engage in high conflict litigation. And 83% of school shootings are from child custody battles in single parent homes. There's an 18% increase rate of alcohol abuse and substance abuse. And the marriage rate is at the lowest recorded state of history, so lower than the Great Depression and both world wars. Currently, the children who are now aged to get married in America, and has been for a few decades now, are not getting married, and that rate is plummeting at a perfect line like this.
Oh, wow.
So those are the effects, and they're not good. And if you just heard the words off my lips, you know that that's true. Like, you don't even have to go do your research. You can just look around you and think about your friends and family members and the children of today and how they operate in relationships. It's very evident.
I believe so. And, the thing about it is, for me, is that people have a choice. They can make a conscious choice that I'm going to go about my divorce or my custody battle, this way, which could really damage the children, or I'm going to choose another way, which really could change the future of the children. Do you agree with that?
100%. So it doesn't have to be that you change the other person into being an amazing co-parent. You just have to change yourself into being an amazing co-parent. That means that you're not talking negatively about your co-parent. You're not talking to the child about anything that's going on. They're seeing that you are navigating it yourself, handling it yourself. You're not running for other people to manage your conflict for you. That's not what you want to model for them. You want them to see how to get through something that's adversarial by being yourself. You're being able to accommodate and to be accountable to yourself. Self-accountability is probably the biggest thing that you want to teach your children, because that means they can get through anything.
That's, wonderful advice. I agree with that 1,000%. My daughter right now is doing online school at home, and my husband and I are at home. And, it's hard because, I'm a type A person, but I'm really trying to keep my hands off. She's 9 years old. And let her manage going to class and doing her assignments, because I feel like that's teaching her the very important skill of being accountable for herself. So, but let me go ahead.
Well, I just want to note that, it is a crazy time during COVID, and we are at home a lot, and parents are at home a lot, and this is crazy. And yes, it's not necessarily great for the kids to be away from their interactions with other people. But if we can put it in perspective for them, not like this is forever, it's just going to be terrible forever, but things are different. 2020 is a different year. Capsulate it. It's going to be a little bit difficult, but you know what? We're going to get there on the other side. It's not going to be like this forever. You're learning how to manage your own schedule now. You're learning how it is to interact with people from afar, and let them know. If you point out what they're learning and what it is that they're doing, and then identify a time that it's going to be different, or just let them know that it's not, they're not in sinking sand. That's not real. They're fine. They're going to be okay. Then that's what they need. If it's the world's ending and everything's terrible 24/7, and you're not analyzing how it is that your family's going to maneuver through this and what they're going to look like in a year, then the children don't know how to do that either. And so, just to your point on that, it is different, but so great that you're using that as a learning experience.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you just reference back to the modeling behavior, because I think, the tendency is sometimes to panic about getting COVID, getting laid off, having financial difficulty, just when am I going to be able to see my mom and dad? And, if the children see us panicking, that's going to probably cause them to panic too.
And panicking means that you're focusing on the negative outcome that you don't want to happen. So the best thing you can do for yourself is focus on the outcome that you do want to happen. Because if you're funneling towards that, then you're going to get there. So for instance, if you were driving your car and your plotted point was off of a cliff, you're going to go off of a cliff. If you're driving your car and your plotted point is home, you're going to go home, So you have to think about that. If you're just looking at the line, the yellow line and the white line on either side of you, you're going to end up in the ditch. If you are focusing on going off the cliff, then away you go, just like a cartoon, So I think when we think of, it's very difficult. Now, am I saying this just like la la la? It's so easy for you to just pick a plotted point. Yes, of course, it's not that easy, but it takes work. It takes mental fortitude, but you can do it. I believe in you. I mean, I've risen from the ashes from the beginning, and so I believe in you. I promise.
I believe in you too. And I love, Ashley-Nicole, you speak my language, girl. I mean, totally. And I think that this is really, it's about intention and people getting clear on what it is that they want in their life, and not focusing, like you said, on what they don't want, getting clear on what you want and moving towards what you want. And that boils down to, I think, those everyday behaviors, which turn into habits, which you were referring to earlier. So, I want to get your thoughts on habits, because as we all know, old habits die hard. I know that from personal experience. I, was in bad relationships in my 20s and early 30s. And I remember that I would replay what happened in those toxic relationships over and over and over in my head. And then I'd wonder, why can't I find a decent guy? And then at some point, something snapped, and I thought, I need to change my thought pattern. So do you have any suggestions for people on how they break those negative habits that are really taking them off the cliff?
Yes, so that's called critter state. When you're in critter state, you're a hamster on a wheel. You're just cycling around, and you're just thinking the same thought over and over and over. And in order to break that thought, you have to start asking yourself questions. So as humans, the base of our brain is where we go when we are in conflict, because it's called fight or flight. That is an animalistic part of your brain, though. That part of your brain is originated a long time ago. The prefrontal cortex of your brain is actually the evolved humanistic part of your brain. It's what we have that makes us different than everybody else, because we reason and we can think. And the only way that you can reason and think in that type of thought process is to have a question. Because if you are asking yourself a question, you're engaging a part of your brain that's not animalistic. You're engaging the humanistic part of your brain. Those questions need to be, what am I willing to give up to get out of this? What is it that I actually want? Not what I don't want. What is it that I actually want? What behaviors am I willing to change in order to promote myself and move myself forward? What is it that I'm willing to do differently to move to that point? Those are all things within your realm of control. You do not need to be asking questions about things that are not within your realm of control because there's nothing you can do about it. So, that is the biggest way to do it. I get in critter state all the time. My fiance can tell you that he battles my critter state 24/7, but he also knows about my critter state. He knows the things that'll get me into a cycle, and he can see me cycling because I'm saying it over and over and over again, where I'm questioning something over and over. Having an accountability partner in that respect that you can say, hey, if you are in a relationship with someone, it's something that you need to talk about. You need to talk about how you handle conflict, how you got to this place, what it is that you have triggered thought processes of, so that that person can help you to cycle back out of them. And you cycle back out of them by asking questions.
Okay, lovely. Wonderful. Okay, let's talk for a minute about overwhelm, which, and I'm not trying to focus on just the negative, but I also know where my viewers are and the things that I hear about them. And I want to talk about what they're struggling with. So maybe we can help them move past it. And a lot of times I hear that they're overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed because they're going through this divorce. They feel like money's short. They're trying to be a single parent now. They're trying to keep their job. They're trying to have 5 minutes to themselves. They're trying to answer all these interrogatories. They're trying to get ready for a deposition. How can they deal with overwhelm?
Plan it out. So you need to have, look at this. This is my to-do list for today. My fiance and I had a team meeting this morning. It's Monday morning. It's the beginning of the week. It's overwhelming. It's stressful. I run 7 different businesses in this household and have numerous properties that we manage, so it's a lot. It's a lot. I don't have kids yet, but I will be having them soon, and it's going to be even more. And I think that right now my kids are the businesses. And so it's plan. You've got to plan for it. You need to know, how is it that you are able to process through something? How is it that you're able to understand and deal with your own to-do list? If that's writing it down for you, then that's important. If it's, I think writing things on your mirror, things that you need to get accomplished or your big goals is really, really important. That can help with the overwhelming feeling. Litigation is overwhelming in general. So I want you to give yourself some grace. It's overwhelming, period. It's going to be overwhelming for any human that's in it. It doesn't matter who you are, millionaire to janitor. It's overwhelming. It does not matter. It's your entire life, and it's in one thing, and it's always going to be incredibly important. These are important decisions, but that just means you need to center. That means that you need to focus on what exactly is the decision that you need to make. What are the plotted points? For my clients, the reason they're able to deal with this so well, and I do collaborative law, which is a settlement-based process, brings people out of the courtroom so that they can settle. So that's what I focus on. But a big thing for them is I give them a series of plotted points. They know exactly the steps that lead to the light at the end of the tunnel. See the light right there? That's it. And they know the steps to get there. And so I think that that's really important because it helps your brain to organize and to digest. It's indigestible if it feels like it has no end. It does have an end. I promise it has an end. This will not go on forever unless you decide that it's going to go on forever and you're the one that's just opening the can of worms back up every day. And so that's the only way it's going to go on forever. Otherwise, I promise it has an end date.
So can you just tell people what the divorce process has the possibility of looking like for them and what their life, and not just divorce process, but any litigation process regarding family law, custody, what that has the possibility of looking like and what life after that process has the possibility of looking like?
So my community actually gave me Small Business Leader of the Year because they said I changed the quality of life for my clients. They were actually happy, healthy, contributing members of society after their divorce, sat on the same side of the ball field, cheered together, both step parents and parents together. And was that easy to get there? Did they love each other in the beginning? Were they singing Kumbaya in my office? No, of course not. That's ridiculous. I'm not preaching that Kumbaya is the standard. I'm just saying that it's possible as long as you determine that, and so it can look like this. It can look like you sending a settlement offer across the table to begin a settlement conversation. Have you even had a settlement conversation, or did you go straight for the throat? You know what I'm saying? It can be, what is it that you're willing to give up? Where is your points of compromise? You have to know exactly what you're willing to compromise on. You're not going to get it all. That's not how divorce works. It's just not. Even if you did get it all, they may come back at the other end of it. They may try to sue you or appeal it down the road. Even even if you get it all, it doesn't mean that you've gotten it all. It means that you've spent a lot of money to get it all in attorney's fees. I can promise you that. And what could you have spent that money on and invested it on? And if that was even just sitting in a money market account, what would you have had, versus what you spent on an attorney? And I think that's something that people start. And I'm not trying to reduce our fees, your fees, or my fees, but at the end of the day, I don't want you to pay for my kids to go to college. I want you to pay for your kids to go to college. I want your kids to go to college.
Yep.
That's a goal. Let's talk about that. So you could be putting the money that you're forking towards an attorney towards that. And if you even offered that, would that make the other side settle? Maybe, you never know. And so start generating those options for yourself. That's a way you can get out of this. The way that it can look on the other side is, I promise, it can look like you having a very functioning relationship with that person. And even if you don't have a functioning relationship with that person, you can have a very functioning child. The child needs love and they need stability from somewhere. And as long as they have that, then they get the option to choose. They can choose between, do they have to go to dad's? Yeah. Or do they have to go to mom's? Yeah, they do. That's important too, because you want them to be a whole person. You want them to know what it's like to have both parents, if possible. If not possible, then you can have other people in your community or in your family help to role model what that role looks like. And you can identify that for your child. Or maybe it's one of your parents that did a good job on that. You can still role model that. You just have to get a little bit more creative and think outside of the box. Think outside of the box. You may be in a box, but you can always get out of it.
Fantastic. Well, so that's wonderful. Any parting words for my viewers? And then also, once you give your parting words, like if there's one must-do thing or one, important piece of advice you want to leave them with, I want you to be sure and tell people how they can find you, Ashley-Nicole.
Absolutely. So I think that the biggest thing that I always try to harp on is perspective. I want you to know that a ton of people are going through the exact same thing that you're going through, and 10 years down the road, they're okay, and you're going to be okay. And also, I believe in you. So the biggest thing that I think people hurdle is themselves. And you are going to be one of your biggest enemies. And the faster you can realize that and understand where you affect your own self and your own thought process, the better you're going to be able to get through it. And so know that I believe in you. I have done things that many, many, many have said were impossible, and they are possible. But first, you have to believe that they're possible, because if you have to convince yourself still, you can't convince other people. Just think about being a salesperson and trying to go in for a sales pitch and you don't even believe in the product you're trying to sell. It ain't going to work. And so that's the first thing. You have to sell yourself on you. And that's a hard conversation, but that's a man in the mirror moment. So you can, think about that, get in the mirror and start to understand who you are and what it is that you can do to help promote your self-believing in you, because that's the first place you got to start. So you can find me on anrlaw.com. You can find the book on Amazon. You can find the podcast on Amazon or any other platform. If you listen to Spotify or your iPhone, you can find it on any of those places. And we're giving lots of advice on how to get through this in a healthy way. Does that mean perfect? Not by a long shot. I don't expect you to be perfect. I don't want you to expect you to be perfect. It's going to be difficult, but we're here for you. And I know, Wendy, that, you're preaching that same message. So thanks so much for helping to raise this parachute, because I think the more people see that there are plenty of people all over the country doing it and all over the world, then they can believe in it more and more.
Lovely. This has been fantastic, Ashley-Nicole. Everybody go check out Ashley-Nicole's book and her podcast. And I believe in you too. And until next time, remember to keep on trucking and command the courtroom. I'll see you then.